What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Rogue Bob Gaming. I'm Matt.
Eric.
And today we got a couple tips and tricks, our top 5 tips and tricks if you are getting into the Pokemon TCG, if you're just starting out, or if you need a refresher if you played before.
Yeah. Before we get into it, make sure to like, subscribe, tell a friend, tell your grandmother, because for some reason we get a lot of engagement with grandmothers on this channel.
Hey,
So-
grandmas love us.
I know. Don't know why. It could be the handsome faces. We don't know.
I guess so.
But yeah, let's go ahead and dive right in because we know everybody hates a long intro. These are our top 5 for TCG. TCG stands for the card game, in case you didn't know.
Trading card game, to be specific.
Yes, and so this can apply, obviously TCG you might hear, I think a lot of people talk about it in Pokemon, but you could also refer to it in Yu-Gi-Oh! Like TCG.
Magic the Gathering,
Yeah.
Anything that has trading card games that you
Yes.
play.
Yes, exactly. So, with that, number 5, the most basic function, I think, to getting into any TCG is understanding the card types. And so, for Pokemon specifically, you have your Pokemon cards. Mm-hmm. You have item cards, you have supporter cards, and you have energy.
Yep.
Those are the 4 main card types. And with Pokemon, you have abilities. Not every Pokemon has one, but certainly utilizing abilities is going to be important and can even be the center of a deck in itself.
They also have attacks. Yep. And Pokemon also go in stages. Your basic Pokemon you can play out first. You have stage 1 Pokemon which have to evolve from your basic Pokemon, and stage 2 have to evolve from your stage 1. It's just like going from Charmander to Charmeleon to Charizard, like in the Pokemon video game, or just in the Pokemon world, essentially.
And in a vast majority of circumstances, you have to wait a full turn before you can evolve Pokemon.
Yep.
So think about at least needing kind of 2-3 turns, depending on how much you need to evolve or what you need to get to.
Absolutely.
Pokemon also have energy costs for attacks. And so utilizing the energy necessary can be one type of energy, can also be multiple types of energy.
And you can only attach 1 energy per turn,
Correct.
generally speaking. There are cards that circumvent this, but you're thinking about putting 1 energy down per turn on a specific Pokemon, so only that Pokemon can use that energy. And they get to keep it unless said different.
Yes. An ability of a Pokemon might be that you can attach more than 1 energy to that Pokemon. Absolutely. Or another Pokemon. So abilities are really, really great. Pokemon cards will also have weaknesses. So if you played the video games, you're probably familiar that grass are weak to fire, and so forth. So it does work similarly in the card game, the trading card game. And so with a weakness, you'll double the attack of it. So if the attack does 50 damage, if your the opponent that you are attacking is weak to your Pokemon that you are attacking with, it would go from doing 50 damage to doing 100 damage.
They also have resistances sometimes.
Yes.
So resistances obviously just do the opposite. Generally speaking, you'll get negative 30 off any damage. So if it's 50 damage, you'll be getting 20 dealt to you for a resistance.
Make sure to remember that when you are playing, because I've been playing for a while and I still forget about weaknesses as well as resistance.
I love it.
Another function that the Pokemon cards have are retreat costs, and so that is a punishment, for lack of a better term, for you to withdraw that Pokemon as you're active from the battle slot, we'll say. And so there are cards that can, again, circumvent or lower that retreat cost, or make it so that that Pokemon doesn't have a retreat cost.
Some of them do have 0, which can be very helpful.
Yep, typically your stronger cards, your VVMAX, will have a higher retreat cost, but you can do things to help mitigate that, and there are item cards that can help with that, abilities. There's all sorts of things that can help.
And speaking of items are used to kind of support your Pokemon. They can be anything from healing to getting things out of the deck to finding other Pokemon in the deck. They're just there to help you kind of find your way through your deck and just add some extra battle prowess as you're going against your opponent. They have multiple different functions, and you can play as many item cards as you want to. So when it comes to trainers, items you can play as many as you want, and then supporters, which tend to be a little bit stronger, supporter cards, you can only play 1 per turn. So you can only play 1, and if you are going first, you cannot play 1 at all that turn. So if I'm going first, I can't play 1, but then the person next can play 1, and then when it comes back to me, I can play 1.
Correct. Yeah. So there are a lot of different types of decks that will utilize both items and supporters. I would say in a lot of decks, supporters, like Matt said, are stronger and more useful. But item cards can also be super helpful. So there really isn't any card that's necessarily more important than the other. It really depends on the deck you're playing. Obviously, you need Pokemon, though, in order to attack. So we'll go ahead and say that is the most important. And then our last type of card is relatively straightforward, but it is energy. We kind of talked about this a little bit earlier. You can only attach 1 energy per turn unless there's a card that says otherwise. And then in terms of energy, I feel like this is a pretty popular question for people first getting started is how many energy do I need in a deck? And there are no rules in terms of energy cards. I don't think. I don't.
No, you can have as many as you would
have
like.
as many as you like. That's what I thought.
Of regular energy. Special energy, you can only have 4 of.
Yes, 4 of each type of card.
Yeah, if it's so special energy, you can only have 4. But if it's like a basic energy, your grass, fire, you can have as many as you'd like.
Yep. And so I think when a lot of people are getting started, guidance might be 10 to 15 energy cards, but there are also a lot of fairly the more competitive decks, the more competitively viable decks might only rotate 5 to 8 energy because they can access them either in the deck or from the discard pile, and they can keep recycling energy.
And as much as energy are good, you don't want to run into too many of them because then you'll just end up in a very bricked hand. So your hand will have nothing useful in it.
You can only draw once per turn unless you have a card that says otherwise. And so if you just keep pulling energy cards, that's helpful only to a certain extent.
Yeah.
The rest of these will be shorter.
So tip number 4. This is something I do a lot, is to play online.
Yes.
So Pokemon has made a free-to-play online TCG game. It's called Pokemon TCG Online. It's very simple. It's free to download. You can play it on Mac, PC, and they have tutorials on there. So if you're kind of confused about the rules, even when reading them or listening, they have tutorials on there where you can practice. And also you can play against people if maybe you don't have someone to play against either in your house nearby, or you have a friend, across the country that you would like to play. It's just a really easy way and efficient way to get used to playing the game, especially since the game doesn't allow you to do illegal moves. So you'll kind of figure out, I'm allowed to do X, Y, and Z by just playing online.
Yep, you don't need to know the rules because the game will not make sure that you don't break the rules.
Exactly.
And the game is free to download. It's a lot of fun. You've probably seen Matt doing some videos, pulling some packs online.
Some packs, yep, that's my thing.
Yep, and when you, whenever you buy a physical pack, you'll get a code card in that pack that you can then exchange for free, of course, other than the price you paid for the pack, in the online card game. And so that's also kind of useful for that. All right, number 3. You can utilize packs in order to help build your deck, but you can also utilize single card purchases to build a deck. And we would highly recommend doing that because when you're buying packs, it's a ton of fun to pull cards.
Absolutely.
And you'll get energy cards in there, you'll get some basic Pokemon, you might even pull some VMAX cards, and that's great. But if you want to get good at the game or improve and have a competitively viable deck, you might need 3 to 4 copies of a V card or a VMAX card, or cards that are generally harder to pull in a pack. And so if you want to play a Gengar VMAX deck, just thought of that off the top of my head, you might pull one and get excited, but it could take you 30 packs before you find another one or more. And so it's easy to go on something like TCG Player and just see what would this card cost if I just bought it individually. And a lot of times you'll find that it's much more affordable to just buy the individual cards for $20 a piece or $15 a piece. The prices online will kind of vary depending on how competitive the card is. If it's a really good card, it'll cost more, but it'll still be cheaper than trying to buy 4 booster boxes to find your
just one card. And you can even look up deck lists. So sometimes people put up their deck list. You can see all the cards they use. Maybe you're like, okay, I have a decent amount of those cards, and you just buy the remainder instead of using randomness to just hope that you get the correct cards.
Exactly. And you can buy any type of card online. You can buy energies if you really don't want to wait to pull energies either, and energies are really cheap. A lot of item cards are really cheap. Basic Pokemon. A lot of basic Pokemon can be fairly cheap, and so you're really talking about your win condition cards that might cost a little bit more, still is going to end up being cheaper than booster packs 99.9% of the time. So we highly recommend utilizing booster packs to get cards, but then also for the cards you might be lacking or need multiple copies of that are important for your deck, just buy them individually. It's going to save you a lot of time and effort and frustration.
Absolutely. I tried to just pull everything out of packs. It was very frustrating.
Yeah, very much.
Tip number 2 is find a deck that works for you. Different decks work differently. A lot of difference there.
That is a true fact.
But different decks work differently. Maybe there's a play style you're very interested, or maybe there's just a Pokemon you're really interested in. Maybe it's a type. I love fire, so if I was first starting out, I would love to be like, oh hey, I'm into fire types. Let me build a fire type deck, or hey, I love Gengar VMAX as we were talking, so I'll build a Gengar deck. Just find what type and what kind of play style works for you, and that might take some trial and error. But find out what just interests you about the game and build a deck around it. It's all about having fun at the end of the day, and you just learn by playing. So just find what interests you first and then kind of build out from there.
As cliche as it is to say, it really is about having fun. I personally love to have Psychic and Dark decks. Those are kind of my 2 favorite typings, at least within the TCG format. And so I love when I hear about a set coming out that has like a really viable, fun Dark or Psychic card that you can kind of build around. And so there are some decks that might utilize multiple typings, but not so much. It usually kind of focuses around one typing.
Yeah.
Not always.
Generally speaking.
Generally speaking.
General rule.
Yeah, general rule. So, find that typing or play style that you like and kind of go after it and do research to see what other people have done within that card or typing or whatnot. All right, and our very last tip that kind of rolls into what we were just talking about is knowing the different play formats. And when we talk about play formats, there's two main ones. They're called standard versus expanded. And so if you are somebody that knows you kind of want to go to a game shop and play in official tournaments, you're going to want to make sure that you have a deck that is within that standard format. What we mean by standard is just the current cards that are eligible in that rotation to play in official tournaments. So usually they go a couple of years, maybe 2.5 years back. Pokemon usually releases 3 or 4 sets, 3 or 4 expansions every year. Ish, around that. And so generally you have a couple of years worth of cards to work with. With that said, if you went back 2 years and you got a really good deck, you might only have a few months before that deck rotates out and then would fall into the expanded format, which there might be some tournaments that you can play in, official tournaments that do have an expanded tournament bracket, but by and large standard is going to be the most popular. But if you just want to play with friends and you know you're not big into official tournaments, you don't want to put in your $5 buy-ins and all that, you just want to play with friends, then feel free to kind of go as far back as you want, other than maybe Gen 1s, because those are probably valuable. So I wouldn't suggest using those.
I believe expanded goes back to black and white.
Great.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. So if you want to go all the way back to black and white, which is quite a while ago.
Yeah.
A decade at this point, probably ish.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I would say so.
But with expanded, you can go back that far and use those cards all the way up until now. Standard, you want to make sure you're within that 2.5 year rotation.
Well, thanks so much, guys, for watching the video. Again, that was our top 5 tips for the Pokemon TCG. If you are playing whether with your friends in a tournament, if you're just trying to get into the game, that's kind of our take on how to get into the game if you have any interest in it. It's a lot of fun. I mean, I might be biased, but it's a lot of fun, so I suggest you do so. But if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. We'd be happy to answer. There's a lot to go over, so please leave those questions and we'll try to get to as many of them as possible. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, hit the notification bell, because we're coming out with a lot of videos each week, and it's a fun time over here at Rogue Bob Gabe. So we'll see you in the next video.
See y'all.